Cutting-edge technology is invading in a productive and effective way every aspect of today's business world. Recruiting couldn't be an exception. How trustable can artificial intelligence be in the future of recruiting? Mike Batman Cohen, founder and sourcer at Wayne Technologies, is the most proper person to give us a revealing sneak peek in AI's role at the recruiting process. Mr. Cohen, good evening from Athens.
Good evening. It is morning over here, evening over there. It is beautiful to join you.
It's great having you, sir, with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, guys, we're going to kick this right off because I actually tend to speak much longer than I'm allotted. So I'm going to try to jump right into this. So today we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, right? AI, really, what does this look like? Hopefully everybody can hear me and see me. There's a time delay here, so I'm just assuming that y'all are checking it out. So here's the deal, guys. When we're thinking of AI, right, it's really a buzzword. And this is all I can think about from Zoolander, is hearing Will Ferrell tell me AI. So hot right now, AI, right? So let me tell you a little bit about me. Let me tell you the order that we're going to cover stuff today, and then we're going to jump right into it. So, guys, one thing I will tell you, we are on a delay from when I'm speaking to when it's coming through to you, but I do really want you to ask me questions. So I have the chat screen up. And if you're asking me questions, I will stop and I will answer them and I will show you whatever you want me to. So, guys, my name is Mike Cohen. Everybody calls me Batman. I'm actually pretty cool with that. I'm the founder of Wayne Technologies. It's this crazy crew. We are sourcing subject matter experts. It is all that we do. We do not do recruiting. We don't do any scheduling. We don't do qualification calls. We are sourcing experts. I am also a conference speaker. I absolutely love it. I love the ability to give back to the community. I also love being the center of attention, which is why I'm also an indoor cycling instructor. I get to play my own music, which is typically electronic, which Dov's got some great music selections. I get to be the center of attention. I get to tell people what to do. It's basically my dream job. I'm a big fan of constantly pushing limits, particularly my own. If you've seen me in person, you know that I am in no way built for any long distance sports competition at all. I ran the New York Marathon in 2017 and I ran a half Ironman in 2018, just on the pure will of, can I do it? I want to see what I'm capable of. And that is truly how I try to live most of my existence. I am a GIF and meme aficionado. If you do not like GIFs or memes, I'm going to give you 3 seconds to bail on this presentation because you're going to be real unhappy for the next 30 minutes. Okay, cool. We're all still here. Next, I am a dog lover. These are my two puppies, Blue and Honey. I'm actually showing you this exact picture because I literally put this in my 5th email message to every candidate. And I make a little joke about them looking nefarious. And people love it because they're pretty cute. And I'm a very, very blessed husband to an awesome wife. We actually put on an entire play for our wedding and performed it in a theater. It was a really, really great time. She's like a huge, huge part of my life. And last, I am completely and utterly flawsome, and I just accept that, good or the bad, pretty and ugly. I am all that is flaw and all that is awesome. What you'll see here, these links, reach out to me, connect with me. This bottom link is for my Discord server. I invite everyone to come join the server. It's a chat server. It's similar to Slack. It's free to join. We've got about 350 folks from around the world on the server. Come join me. Hang out. There'll be another link for this at the end that'll be a little bit easier to read and get to, so you don't have to freak out about it. I will put it in the chat shortly. So here is the agenda for the day today. We're going to talk about what actually is AI, right? Because I don't know that we actually have an idea of what it is. then we're going to get a little nitty gritty and talk about the types of AI that are out there, because I think it'll dispel some of the beliefs that we have around what AI is, what it's capable of, etc. We're going to talk about AI in the recruitment process. Basically, where does it fit in and where doesn't it fit in? And where do people say that it fits in? But you got to be really cautious, right? Because Kim made a really great point in this last talk. You have to be human, right? When you send messages to folks, when you're talking to folks and interviewing folks, it has to feel human. There has to be a connection, particularly during this time where we're all dealing with a lack of connection in our lives, right? We're going to deep dive into the AI tools. I'm going to show you a few of them, how they work, my favorites. And then we're going to talk at the end about the struggles that exist with AI, right? The three main things that people tend to bring up about why they're concerned about using AI. So that being said, what is artificial intelligence? So when you look it up online, here's what it says, right? Urban Dictionary, always right on point. Love that, right? But when you're reading this, you're going to get some general knowledge around like, okay, so it's computers and dealing with data and perceiving environments and, simulation of intelligent behavior. And fine, cool. You want to read that, go to town, right? For me, when I summed it all up, I read this journal article in New Scientist from back in 2012, right? I learned a few things. One, AI has been around since 1956. This isn't one of those like brand new, like, whoa, technology. I also learned that this last point here, right? Instead of working towards a single human equivalent, it's splintered off into many different areas. And that's what we're going to look at when we talk about the types. But here's the one, this bold one right here in the middle. This is the one, right? What is AI? When a machine can make the right decision in uncertain circumstances. Here's the deal. We're in recruiting. There is no right decision. Recruiting is not a science. Recruiting is a blend of art and science. There are no right ways to do things. There are many, right? It's not just the right way. Now, there are definitely bad ways to do things and the wrong way. However, really important to note, what does that mean? What does the right decision actually mean? So, with that in mind, what AI tools are out there, right? I get asked this question a ton. What is the best AI tool on the market? And here's my response every time. There's no such thing as AI. It's totally made up. That doesn't exist. It's a buzzword, right? There are no computers that can make the right decision without the proper data. So AI is a buzzword. So let's just be clear that everybody who says that they're doing artificial intelligence, they're not. They're using artificial intelligence as a word because it overall encompasses the entire field that they study. But what they're actually doing typically is machine learning pattern matching algorithms. Machine learning pattern matching algorithms. You'll notice it doesn't really flow off the tongue, right? AI, much easier. So let's look at this in terms of what these actually are. The four main types, right? As we discussed 2 slides ago, this is where the field of computer science split when it came to artificial intelligence. So the first one that we have, reactive machines. You guys may remember when IBM's Watson was on Jeopardy. You may have seen some of these AI bots playing chess. These are reactive machines. They have to be taught something ahead of time, and it basically is a very complex series of if this, then that statements. So when you're playing with, let's say you're playing chess.com, right? Because everybody now plays chess after the Queen's Gambit, which is dope. And you're playing against the computer. The computer is going to move based on where you move. So it's reacting to what you're doing. Now, it still had to be taught all the rules of chess, had to be taught all of the many combinations of different moves and the algorithms and probability of success based on each of those moves. So AI, I guess, no, right? It's a machine you taught to do a thing when a thing happens. Second piece, limited memory. So I think of this when I think of Siri. So similar to the reactive machines, it has to be programmed to know what to do in terms of an if this, then that. However, if every Friday night you said, hey Siri, find me the closest pizza place so I can order food. And right now Siri's doing that on my phone. And it pulls up a list, and every Friday you choose the same pizza place right by your house. What's going to happen is Siri's going to learn over time to put that thing first, right? May save their information, right? So it's learning a little bit based on your past interactions. This is a lot of what people associate with machine learning. It's taking the inputs that you're giving it and it's changing the way it interacts with you the next time around. That sounds really simple. It's obviously much more complex than that on the back end. The third type, theory of mind. So theory of mind is what we're just starting to get into with artificial intelligence and machine learning. We are very early on here, but it's the ability for computers to understand things like emotion and things like computer vision. And here's why this is so complicated. And I'll ask all of you to try and describe this. You can put it in the chat if you want, but I want you to describe what the emotion of happiness is without using a synonym of happy and without using the word emotion or a synonym of emotion. So describe that. And if anybody has the answer, that is super dope. And if you're going with synapses that your brain fires when it feels pleasure, stop it. It's hard to explain that. So it's even harder then to explain to a computer what that is to have it learn, right? And the final level of AI, self-awareness. These are the computers who go and do their own thing and they just, whoa, excuse me. They are these self-thinking computers. We are not even close to Skynet and Terminator. So now we've covered what is AI, right? The ability for a computer to make the right choices and right behaviors based on limited data from external factors. We've discovered the 4 different types that we have. We have the reactive, the limited memory. We have the theory, the human expression, computer vision, and then we have the full-fledged Terminator, Matrix, watch out now, right? So now let's look at sourcing and messaging. What within sourcing and messaging can we actually apply some of these quote unquote AI tools and methodologies to? Here you go. Boom. Market insight and data, right? Boolean searching, just finding candidates generally online, and then communication automation. That could mean email, that could mean text message, but some type of automation. We can use an AI tooling to solve or work with. Looking at interviews and the rest of the process, I summarized it really briefly. I didn't want to break down the 40 steps all the way through, right? We have data collection, which is basically any type of phone call or interview. We have all the scheduling. We have all the feedback that goes back and forth that can also include references. And then closing the candidate can be either letting them know you're passing, closing them in terms of getting them, closed down on a number that they want to accept, extending the offer, etc. So on this one, scheduling, that's it, right? So those are the things that we can do with AI. Now, I'm going to tell you, caution. Here are 2 other areas where AI is now starting to proliferate. Candidate matching, you're going to hear tools like Eightfold. Automated interviews, you're going to hear things like Panya or HireVue. These are areas where AI, remember, when I say AI now, it's always in air quotes, AI, haha, is starting to be used, but we have to be really, really careful, right? I just read a post, I think it was yesterday or even early this morning, about how people shouldn't look at gaps in resumes as a deal breaker. However, a computer might do that because there's not a human aspect to it. Right, a computer is just generating algorithms based on past experiences. We want to do this. Fine, but also terrible for diversity and inclusion Because if you're only looking at what you've done in the past to determine who you'd want to hire in the future, you're going to have a really hard time getting the idea of diversity into a computer's brain, because it is contrary to the concept of what has worked in the past, will it work for us in the future, right? The second piece, the automated interviews. I'm going to tell you, I know there are companies who do this. If any of them are sponsoring this event, Jenny, I am so sorry. I hate these. When I say hate, I want you to know that vehemently from the core of my soul and fibers of my being, I hate automated interviews. I hate one-way interviews. They are the least personal, just terrible feeling experiences for candidates. I have never one time in my entire life heard a candidate say, "No, I actually really like just doing that interview all by myself in a room, answering questions a robot was asking me." Never, not once. So if that's a thing that you're doing, understand that you're doing it because you guys are in a time crunch and you don't have enough time to screen candidates. So understand that you're telling your candidate up front, my time is more valuable than your time. Just understand that. If you can appreciate that, cool. Do your own thing. Not a fan, but I get it. These are the cautionary AI tales. So when we look back at the other pieces, what can AI help with, right? That market insight and data, that's to me is a sourcing function, right? We're going to use similar tools, similar sourcing platforms to develop that marketing insight and data. And you can use the AI functionality to develop that data very quickly. Obviously, the big one, guys, finding and identifying candidates. This is the sourcing piece. This is where we're hearing all of the big tools or the quote unquote AI sourcing platforms. Julian, I just got your message. What if the robot is very nice to you? Well, then I guess it's okay. If they're like really nice, like I'm talking 3 compliments in under the first 10 minutes, fine. Yeah, I guess I'll go with that interview. So the third is communication automation. And again, there's very particular use cases for this that are good, but it can very easily be viewed as bad, right? Like Kim said this, and again, I'm going to repeat, when you are reaching out to candidates, it has to come from Batman, not from a robot using Batman's email address. And so you got to be real careful with the chat bots. And then the fourth one is actually calendaring. And if you're thinking like, how? I send my Calendly link and they click it and then they choose the time. How is that AI, right? Scheduling can be done AI using a specific tool called X.AI. And I'll show you guys kind of what that looks like. I'm going to give you the examples of the tools that I use and then show you some of them. I can go deeper. Again, stop me in the chat. Ask me any questions that you have. I can show you whatever it is that I have access to at the moment. Angie Veras, I'm going to call you out on this one. She says, use the robots to help augment your human approach. This is basically what I live my entire existence by when I talk to people. Tools do a job. They don't do your job. AI does a job. It's a tool. It is not your job or the tool. So that is a great call, Angie. So you get AI, everybody gets AI. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be an AI fest. We all love it. The bottom line is we all use AI every single day. If you don't think, well, I don't really use AI, if you've typed something into Google, you've used AI. So enjoy that. And if you haven't typed anything into Google all day, good job, I guess. You're paying really good attention at this conference. I have ADHD, so like that's not a thing. So sourcing. Let's take a look at this. These are the 6 main, there's 2 more that I have access to, but these are the 6 AI platforms that I have access to that I use. As I said, there are 2 more that I have access to. I don't really use them, so I wasn't going to talk about them or show them at the moment. But I want to show you what the AI functionality of the sourcing actually looks like, because I think people have a misconception as to like what this is going to do and how it's going to do it. And I think when you actually see it happening, you'll realize that there could be a use case for it, but more often than not, it's actually a little bit more tedious in the long run in terms of your ROI on your time. So let's jump into this for a hot second. So my favorite platform is Seekout. It's always been my favorite platform to source on. I don't use their AI functionality because, to Vanessa's point, I won't be replaced by a robot. So I truly believe if I went head to head with the AI matching algorithm, I'm going to win. I'm also a total control freak, so that probably plays into it. But this is what it actually looks like, right? When we're typing this in and where we work at Amazon and we're looking for a Java engineer, right? So we literally are typing all this in and we know that they're in Seattle and we'll call that the project name, sure, right? You can paste the job description in here, which is cool because it'll parse it and fill all these skills for you. But realistically, you're just picking a bunch of these skills. Right, so you take some time, fill these in. You'd look for the 3 most required skills. We want Java, we want Python, and we want software development, which I guess should probably be there, but cool. And then you can add some optional skills of stuff that would be great. Probably kind of what you were thinking already, but good that you're able to kind of see it here. Years of experience, we want somebody really senior, so 10 to 20 plus. You can go diversity, which I think is really cool. So we can go female on this. And degrees, we want a master's degree. And you can even add more filters, which I love. They have, guys, if you look, an insane amount of filters. So you go bananas picking out all your filters for this AI tool. And then it does its little AI thing in the background. I'm 100% convinced that this entire thing is just an image to placate me while I'm sitting here. I don't think they're actually showing anything valuable. But here is how AI works. Ready? We look at profile and say, senior AI, blah, blah, blah. I'm not a huge fan of this company. If they're going to be working at Amazon, I'm going to reject. And they ask why. I choose company. Next, I look at this person. Boom, coming out of Expedia Group. Okay, Nike, let's say we like that. Little short stints, but like whatever. Let's say we like that. Great, so we accept. And we're going to go through this process. Java microservices, AT&T, like that, right? Intern, no. Too junior, so seniority. Great. And we're just going to keep going. Java developer, fine. Boom. And now get more matches. And we'll choose, we want 50 more matches. And guys, this is the entire process. This is what AI looks like. Could I have chosen to add all of them into the project and not even look at them? Yeah, but then I'm trusting that they're going to know what I want after looking at 5 candidates, right? So you're going to go through, and every time you go through and yes and no and yes and no, the algorithm learns a little bit more about what you do and don't like to a degree. So here is where things get messed up. John, yeah, they use it to train the algorithm, but this is where things can go awry. So when you reject someone, right, I would reject this person. Why? Hasn't been working since 2009. So when I click reject, there's no thing here that's going to say, hasn't been working in 11 years, 12 years. So you choose other. The computer's not going to learn from that, right? So same thing, hasn't been working since 09, reject, other. So now you're rejecting people and the computer algorithm isn't necessarily picking up why, right? So they were in S debt for most of their career. We want people who weren't in S debt, a pure engineer. So we reject again. Well, look, there's nothing that says previous title. Right? The title of software developer actually works. So if I choose title, now all of a sudden the algorithm's getting confused because this is one of the titles I chose. So it is not perfect. AI sourcing is not perfect. It does offer you the ability to, I guess, kind of quickly go through this. But if you're looking at the number of acceptances versus rejections, we've gone through, I don't know, like 8 profiles so far, and I put 3 of them through. So that's less than 50%, right? So I'm a Boolean junkie. So like if I can't write Boolean on a sourcing platform, I'm not in. I have no interest, right? So again, that's why I love Seekout. You can go Boolean bananas on this. The other example of AI that I wanted to share with you is actually in the ATS. So some ATSs offer AI functionality like Loxo, right? And the way Loxo does this is a little bit similar, a little bit unique. So when you're opening a new job in Loxo and you add one, it literally asks you, do you want to use Loxo AI? Right? And it explains that it's going to automatically go through. They've got a huge database that they keep updated relatively recently. And then they're going to add the people into the sourced column for you. You're not even going to go through the yes, no. They're going to go off of what you put in here and automatically add them based on both your database and their sourcing, right? And it's the same thing. You're going to put in your titles. You're going to put in the companies and the roles and the skills and the whole kit and caboodle, and then it's going to find the candidates for you. So that's how AI works. It's not glamorous. It's not this whole holy smokes, it found me 10 awesome candidates. It's still pretty manual. And then you still are going through all the candidates. You're not just going to trust this AI and send them all messages, right? That's where you're getting into, again, what Kim said about not being a robot. There has to be a human aspect, right? What Angie said. Nafar, Boolean bananas. Let's do that. I love that. Let's coin it, right? So similar, Hire Tool works very similar to Seek Out, what I just showed you. Engage Talent actually uses AI to predict the likelihood of people leaving a job, as well as the best phrases to use when reaching out for them based on the sentiment analysis of how they write their profile. It's very cool how they do that. Again, is it 100% accurate? No. Is it going to save you a bunch of time? Not really, which is my general belief around all of these AI tools. If they save you a little bit, cool. But what they're saving you, you're giving up in control. Intello, good sourcing platform. The AI for me is okay. They are really great for diversity and inclusion searches. It's a good thing they do. Loxo, I just showed you, all in one, right? ATS, sourcing, messaging. They're going to use their AI to match people to the job descriptions when you put them in. And Amazing Hiring. I'm not going to lie to you. I love their platform for technical sourcing. I don't necessarily understand where the quote unquote AI fits in here. It seems just like a very well honed in sourcing platform that understands technology better than most. But whatever, we're going to use buzzwords however we want. So the last two here, chatbots. These are the two that I use. I use Sense more in the candidate process pathway. I use Zor as an upfront, almost like a preliminary screening for candidates who don't want to talk to me. And then we have the calendaring piece. I use X.AI, which does the same thing as Calendly or BookMe, but they have an AI component that I think is super cool. So let me show you. I'm going to show you Zor. I'm going to show you X.AI and what it looks like. If you've never seen a chatbot for jobs, here's what the back end looks like. Zor is great and has given me access to kind of show you guys this. But on the back end, they're basically saying what your job description is, where it's located. You're answering a whole bunch of questions that you think they're going to ask you ahead of time, right? And you're putting in all of this data. It takes a little bit of work up front. Most chatbot companies are doing this for you in the background, which is super cool. So you're filling in all of the potential questions they're going to ask you, as well as the questions you want to ask them. And at the end of all of it, you're going to get something that looks like this when they click on apply to your job, right? Or we used it more commonly when we were looking for, this is back in the day when we were looking for drivers, actually. We did some work with Whole Foods, but we used it a lot when we were looking for drivers, because we would ask them, hey, do you want to pop on the phone and chat with us for 5 minutes, right? We got to make sure you have a current CDL. We got to make sure you haven't had more than 2 moving violations the last 2 years. You haven't been arrested in the last 2 years, that you're open to doing over the road versus returning home every night, right? Just really basic questions. Do you want to talk to a recruiter, or would you rather just talk to a chatbot? And most people would rather talk to a chatbot than a recruiter. Which is not surprising because we have a terrible reputation, right? And so here's how we used it, right? I'm ready to apply. And then they can go through this process. It can be on text message, it can be here, and just saying, cool, right? We want to switch to Messenger. Nah, we'll just proceed here and keep going. And that way they can go through and answer all of the questions that we would normally just have to go through over a phone, and do it all right here. Super great use case for a chatbot is eliminating the cursory screen. The one where you really have to go through just a few questions just to make sure it makes sense. Chatbot, not good to replace the recruiter interview. Okay, you're not going to ask somebody through a chatbot, well, tell me about what you really want to do with your career and your life. No, negative ghostwriter, right? That is not what we're doing. That pattern is full, right? We're going to use this to gather just surface level data. Hopefully that is at least a good enough showing of an example of a chatbot. You can do this via text message to reinvigorate your ATS, like what Sense does, where you can send a text message that says, hey, haven't touched base in 6 months, wanted to see how things were going at company, right? And then the chatbot can talk and be like, hey, that's great. You think you'd be looking again? Or, hey, I'm glad things are going really well. What type of role would you be looking for? Just based on that, and then set up the call for the recruiter. Chatbots, crushed it. The last one is the calendaring. So XAI functions similarly to Calendly. You set up your meetings, right? You can have your individual meetings. You can have your team meetings where you have multiple people on the calendars. Super great. The thing I like about them, I did this with Vanessa because I knew she wouldn't mind here, is they have an AI, basically a bot that you can email. So as you'll see, I included Amy at X.AI, and I said, thanks for chatting, Vanessa. Amy, can you schedule a 30-minute Zoom call with Vanessa for next week? And Amy writes back to me and says, hey, I just want to confirm this is what you're looking to do, right? And check it out, just from that. It says, cool, it's a Zoom meeting. It's 30 minutes long. Here are the dates, which is next week. And I just respond, yes, that's what I want to do. And boom, Amy will then email Vanessa to set this up for me. It is super cool. It's the same price as Calendly. I'm a big fan. So jumping back in, because again, I'm going to be tight on time because that's how I roll. So let's jump into Xenia. Does a chatbot summarize data for each candidate? I think I understand what you're asking. It will integrate with ATSs and put that data into their profile. It also, so Zor for me spits it out in a CSV file, which I really love. Gives me all the answers to their questions. If they stopped at some point, where they stopped, can even tell you how long they took on questions, etc. So when you build your tool case, there's two pieces, right? You can look at working hard, or you can look at working smart. People always say, what's the best tool, right? It's like, there can only be one best tool. False. That is not true. There are tools that are good for certain situations. There are tools that are not good for certain situations. Stop asking for the best tool. It is a bad question. It's like asking somebody building your house, what's the best tool to build a house? I don't know. What stage in the process are you, right? If someone says a hammer is the best tool to build a house, you should fire that person. Right? So if you're looking at working harder, here are the numbers you're looking at. These are KPIs. These are not metrics. They don't tell a story. If you're working smarter, here's what you're looking at. You're actually going through and looking at these. Well, when you're comparing numbers, that's when you're getting a percentage. This is where you can pose the idea of, hey, we want tooling, right? Hey, we're noticing that we're sending, 2 messages and we're getting a really low response rate. Hey, I need to look at how well you're writing your messages, or how many messages you're using, or your deliverability. The 3 struggles with AI, I'm going a little quickly because I'm realizing I'm running out of time. This will be shared with you guys. You'll have access to that previous slide to kind of go through that data yourself. The struggles with AI, there's 3 big ones. One is user adoption, right? So you have your data integrity, you have the data sync, and you have the data hygiene. So the data integrity, is the data up to date? Is it true? Is it accurate? Does it sync with your systems? Because if you have to manually sync it with all of your systems, no one is going to do that. And then data hygiene. Are you keeping your data up to date? Are you actually staying on top of, do they currently work there? What's their current title, et cetera, et cetera? If you're not, your users aren't going to adopt this because it's going to be more of a headache than it is a help, right? When you have good user adoption, it creates an ecosystem where all the pieces fit together with as little manual effort talking between systems as possible. The second big struggle is the fear around AI. I hear this all the time. Machines are going to take over. They're going to take our jobs. Our productivity is going to go down. Here's the deal. Scientific study. I can share it with you. They asked, I think, 900 ML and AI researchers around the world, when do you think robots will take over these jobs? Here's the number of years they predicted. A retail salesperson was a minimum, and Asia's being pretty aggressive here, of 10 years away to do retail sales. Full automation, guys, we're not going to be alive to see this. So stop worrying about them taking your job. And the last is candidate experience. Here are the 3 areas of candidate experience when you talk to a candidate that they struggle with. Number 1, lack of response from employers. The good old black hole. Guess what? Chatbots always respond to you. It's literally what they're programmed to do. Number 2, the complicated job application process. You know, when you load your resume in and then you still have to put all your data in all of those slots all the way down, and you're clicking on all these things. You have to add the experience. Blah, blah, blah. You know what's really easy? Messaging with people. Most people do it on Facebook or text message. It's not complicated. It's actually way easy. And then the third one, which I have to wait for this thing to disappear so I can actually see it, is an unpleasant interview, right? Recruiters really distracted. It sounded like they were just order taking. They didn't actually hear what I was saying. You know who doesn't do that? Robots. You know what you're getting. You're talking to a robot. You're not expecting that robot to be like, oh my gosh, you sound so sad. Talk to me about that. What's going on? Hey, are you okay? Right? It's a robot. You know what you're getting. And so the unpleasant interview piece isn't there if you're using it, again, for surface level data. So George says, key aspect on AI from a vendor standpoint to matching candidates is to be very open, transparent, and specific to your customers about how the algorithm works and what specific parameters are taken into account. More importantly, be specific on the limitations. Yes, George, that's a great point, right? If people are just more transparent about, hey, here's what our AI is doing behind the scenes. Let's pull the curtain back, right? Not secret sauce. Let's explain to you what it's looking at every time here. And then let's explain to you up front, here's what you can use it for. And honestly, here's going to be the limitations. Boy, oh boy, that would change the way people viewed the concept of AI in the workplace. So guys, I hope you enjoyed. We'll see you soon, humans.